All right. We will end the show on something that me and Tom agree on pretty vehemently. Um, and it's not really trying to. I think we talked a little bit. Were we on the show when that, or was it maybe that was State and Nerd Union? I don't know. Maybe you and me didn't get to talk about it.
Hmm.
But there was an article that came out, Screen Rant, recently, or I guess a day or two ago. Taryn dropped it in our notes for us to mention, and they just did not get. Uh, I mean, there's a whole rant I could go on about Warner Brothers and how they did their release strategy. To be to be fair, like it's not a better or worse. Like they both did bad. Disney and Warner Brothers did not handle this well. So they tried to make Warner Brothers look out better in that article. I'm like, no, they you need to go. You need to rewind back to the end of 2020 when Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins were upset when Denis Villeneuve, who we just got done talking about praising for Dune, was furious that this his epic that he's been working on and has been a childhood dream well, but it's been a like he's wanted to make this movie for so long, and that they said it was going to be simul released. Um, and contractually, Warner Brothers tried to say, "Oh, but we can set the terms for the," and judges were like, "No, you cannot. That is we are not going to do that. That is not going to happen." Um, so studios have not been handling it. Universal might be the only one that's done a good job at this. So it's just surprising to say. I'm not even saying they're shit. I'm not saying they're shitty or anything. I'm just, but kind of surprising. Like they might be the only one that's done well on this. Long story short, Scarlett. Let me switch the photo actually real quick. Yeah, Scarlett Johansson. Uh, it's well within her rights, within a contract that is based on box office receipts, and that, as far as we can tell, and everything I've looked up, has not been adjusted for Disney premiere tickets. Like that's not in the
Hmm.
contract language. It's well within her rights to ask for like what she feels like she's due. We
Yep.
might be annoyed that it is billionaire versus millionaire having that argument. Like I get it. Uh, to Disney's point when they made that statement about um, it feels callous for her to make this right now. Like I can also understand like people fighting over money and these degrees of numbers. Like I can understand why you don't necessarily like. I get that. But if
You
you're,
know, I'll
oh,
throw
go ahead.
this out though. It while it seems tone deaf, yada yada yada. Millionaire versus billionaire. This is just another example of exploitation, and that exploitation of workers. The bar keeps on raising as to where the line is in their exploitation, right? It's because hey, minimum wage workers or uh, other things like that, and I'm going to keep my communist rant to a minimum here. Uh, well, they can find any job, they can go anywhere, they can do, it's they're not important enough. Well, okay, so now, we see doctors doing the same thing. We see, or getting exploited, and now we're seeing, multi-million-dollar actors slash producers getting screwed out of stuff. So
Yeah,
where does the bar stop?
I don't I hate the it has to be this or that, the whataboutism that happens.
Hmm.
Um, None of y'all were saying anything when Robert Downey Jr. got 75 million for Endgame because he negotiated that contract from a subsequent Marvel deals. Uh, like, so it just feels like people are like, well, it's not really sexism. Like, you're not talking about any of the other contract disputes. We're only talking about this one. Are there mitigating circumstances because of the streaming era and like the weirdness of the pandemic? I will grant you that. That's why this is a little more in the forefront as well. But I think if you take that out, the only reason we'd be talking about it, like, so take the streaming out of it, and it's just a normal contract dispute. I think the only reason we're
Yep.
bringing it up is because it's Scarlett Johansson as a woman. So that is, don't, you can't say that element's not there. That's ridiculous. Um, the other, I guess, the other piece too is like um, there's a lot of people that also aren't being paid well, and we're probably, I would not be surprised in the next year or so if we get a CGI or like visual effects strike, but similar to like we had with the
Ooh,
writer strike.
can you
It would not
imagine?
shock me at all. Um, and some people brought that up as a like we should be focused on that more. I'm like, there goes that or again.
Yep.
Why? Just let this thing play out. She's in the right. She's well within her right to do this. And then if you want FX artists to get their paper at Stomp for them. Because I ain't seen y'all saying nothing about them since 08's Iron Man came out. You know? Jeez Louise. It's such a childish argument. It just makes me... Ah! Yes, and yes, folks, I do realize my camera has decided to... There we go. Got it fixed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's never an either or. You can do two things at the same time, and there's there's a lot of opportunity to fix things, and yeah, it's in some ways it's dog whistling.
Yeah, perfect. Yes, there you go. Yes, I think we could just leave. It at that.
All right.
Yeah, if we hear anything more, we'll bring that up. And I also would give some shout out to Gail Ann Hurd and also the SAG director. Let me get her name. Get her name right. Was it Gabrielle Carteris for coming out in defense of Scarlett, and also specifically calling out how bad Disney's response has been to this, like in the SAG president Gabrielle going after them directly. And also from reports we have from behind the scenes, Kevin Feige is pissed. Kevin Feige is upset.
Oh, a billionaire is sad about this.
No. Sorry, upset for Scarlett.
Oh, good. Okay.
Because does Kevin Feige have to toe the company line sometimes? Yes, there's definitely that aspect because he is the position he is as a Marvel studio head. But he always wants to try to take care of his talent. So he's upset that it ever came to this spot. And he's been on record as saying, just pay her. Very succinct statement. Just pay her. Didn't give extra legalese with it. Just said, pay her. Yeah, at least I'm, as much as I don't want to say I bickered with things he said or statements in the past, but I'm at least glad to hear that happen out of this. I'm like, there you go, Kevin. There you go.
Yep.